Well, welcome everyone to a very interesting event that we are broadcasting right now. This is the game between Match of the Legends. Karpov is taking on Oleg Romanishin and also Rafael Vaganian. So three legends playing against each other. And right now you see Carpow playing with the black pieces against Romanishin. Well, it's such a pleasure to see Anatoly Karpov coming back. The queen moves to c2 in this position, attacking the knight on e4. And Karpov thinking for his moves. Maybe he can take on d2 here, or he can take on c3. Both look pretty good. Romanishin has hardly taken any time, takes on d2, queen d2. Well, white is threatening e4 in this position. Maybe Karpov would allow it, but he could also play a move like f5 here. So just for our viewers who are joining in, this is a match of the legends taking place in Platja, Spain, and ChessBase India is showing you the live broadcast right now. The game is going live. Bishop f6, rook moves to d1. It's the match of legends. All the three players who are going to play today, Karpov, Romanishin and Lukkage, are all really great legendary players, and they are fighting it out against each other. The thing to really notice here is how Romanishin is using no time on his clock. He's playing extremely quickly, while Carpow is made to think quite hard over here. Queen moves to c2, and I guess Carpow is going to just develop his knight to d7. There was a time when Carpow was one of the greatest players in the world, and h4, wow, look at this move. Because white has not castled, he can play h4, h5, and guess what, Romanishin, not so young anymore, but still attacking with all his might in the position. He's attacking really hard, and now h4, h5 is a big threat in the position. Karpov is thinking hard for his move. What should he be doing? H6 is one option which he could play, h5 is another, or he could simply ignore it, and he has played his knight to d7. h5 comes in. So well, Romanishin is on the attack. For black in this position, this is going to be a test of Karpov's defensive abilities. King move to f1. Wow. Well, just defending his bishop on g2 and getting ready to move his knight somewhere. Maybe knight h4 is a possibility to attack on g6. Well, to all the viewers who are watching here, well, it's very rare to see a legend who's retired from chess come back on the board, and notice him playing on the board. That's what we are able to see here. Karpov playing d5 was played by Karpov, following the golden rule that when your opponent is playing on the wings, you try to attack on the center. HG, and Karpov is not afraid. He knows that nothing's going to happen on the G file, on the H file. He has the bishop that can jog back to G7. So everything looks good for Karpov as of now. You never know. I think CD5 looks logical here to fix the structure in the center. You really don't want black to be taking on c4 in this position. Romanishin taking his time in this position. So we have now the time is down to 30-second difference between Carpow and around 40 seconds difference between the two. Yes, to all the viewers who are watching this, this is live, this is going live in Spain, and we have ChessBase India Power Tour which is going on in Spain, and Ankit Dalal, who's the group manager, is over there at this moment, and he is bringing us the live feed from there. C6 was played in the position by Karpov. He's absolutely not afraid that knight into G6 could lead to something. Yeah, I don't think it could lead to something. E4 was played by Romanishin. D into E4. And now next comes bishop takes E4. Bishop takes the pawn, and still the attack is pretty strong on the G6 square. So bishop G7. And now a sack could come in on the G6 square, but queen to E2. Romanishin taking his time. I think that black is in trouble here. White has a positional edge. Carpow will try for knight f6 and c5 at some point in this position. Carpow does play his knight to f6. Now maybe bishop goes back all the way to g2. c5 will be met with d5, so not so soon. But rook f e8. Knight comes back to f3. So all of white's attacking intentions are right now have gone for a toss, and c5 by Carpow, just what the doctor ordered. The bishop opens up on b7, and Romanishin it's not the happiest of persons right now. He doesn't know, because d5 will be met with ed5. Suddenly you have the d5 pawn, which could become a weakness. The rook on h1 is suddenly doing not too much in the position. Knight goes to e5. Well, time to exchange the bishops perhaps, then take on d4. I have a feeling that black is now doing really well, but Karpov is thinking hard for his move. What should he be doing here? He played rook c8. Look at his poise, He's not at all concerned that there is tension in the position. He doesn't want to resolve it. Just develops another piece. So I have a feeling that black is going to win this game here. Because cd4 is now coming up. d5 is no longer possible here. And so slowly it becomes quite clear that white's attack was a bit premature with h4. Romanishin also getting low on time. The time control is 5 minutes plus 3 seconds increment, so it's not as short as 3 plus 2. Rook to h4, a creative way to get the rook into the game, but it feels like Carpow will find a way to do something here. Rook f d8. Again, look at how he's getting all his pieces in the center, not taking a decision, keeping all the tension. Karpov in his best years was a fearsome fighter, and he's showing it here. Well, to all the viewers joining in, this is the live broadcast of the match of the legends taking place in Platja, Spain. G5. Wow, that's a bold move. And basically Karpov says, if you move your rook away from the 4th rank, I'm going to take on d4. That's a free pawn for me. And Romanishin thinking hard for his move. What exactly should he be doing? He's down to 27 seconds. My god. Take on b7. I think Carpow will take back. He's not going to. He takes back on b7. And now Romanishin thinking where to take his rook. Maybe he can sacrifice his rook with something like rook h5. But that doesn't seem at all adequate. He has to come back. And he's thinking for his move down to 6 seconds. Rook h2 cd4. Rook takes d4. So he picks up a pawn. And I think Carpow is cd4 is going to win this. Knight to b5 and queen jumps into e4. Carpow can find such moves quite easily. Knight takes on e4 and now the knight on e5 is hanging. Pawn on c4 is hanging. So Carpow takes the pawn on c4. And resignation. What a win for the 12th world champion. Anatoly Karpov. He simply crushed his opponent, and that was a fantastic win. We'll wait for the second round to begin in some time. The round will begin in around 10 minutes from now. But I hope that you guys are enjoying the live broadcast of this match of the legends. And Karpov is playing against Romanishin and also Vaganian. So two greats, one from Oleg Romanishin from Romania and Vaganian from Armenia. So both of them fighting it out against Karpov. So we'll take a short break now and we'll return when the match begins again. So till then, stay tuned. Well guys, all those who are watching live, the second round will begin very shortly, but until then this gives us the chance to interact with each other and maybe to talk about some of the great players ever that have played the game of chess. For example, Karpov over here is back in action. A few days ago we saw Kasparov in the Croatian leg of the Grand Chess Tour. So all these greats, 12th and 13th world champion, are definitely making a comeback to the chessboard. They wish to play, but here Karpov is actually playing. Kasparov isn't playing much. I think the second round will begin in around 10 minutes from now. And it's, I think the next game is between Romanishin and Vaganian, and this one will begin at in 4 minutes. So let's wait for this game to begin. But the game with Karpov was really fantastic. He played in the center. He didn't let his opponent get any chances in the game. Um, and there you see Vaganian coming on the board. At one point, Vaganian was one of the top players in the world. Romanishin coming on the board as well. Well, will this be another attacking game by Romanishin, or will Vaganian come out on top? All those who are fans of French defense will know that Vaganian loves to play the French. Knight f3, f5. Okay, that's interesting. Vaganian going on the attack. Romanishin plays his bishop to g2, pawn e6, d4, b5, and there we have a stone wall set up, but white has not placed his pawn on c4. He's played his bishop to f4, and black preserves his bishop. Usually you put it on d6, but here he goes bishop e7. I guess Vaganian wants to put his knight on e4 and then launch an attack with g5, g4. So c6 first, completing the stone wall structure. Knight goes to d2. So in such structures, white is just looking for knight e5, get the other knight to f3, then put the knight from e5 back to d3, and just play normal chess. While black has to be careful not to land up with a very bad bishop on c8, and that's what Vaganian has taken care of. He's played b6 so that the bishop can develop on b7 or a6. And Romanishin plays rook to c1, bishop b7, and here, well, white has many ways to play. He plays queen to c2, now threatening cd5 so that you can't take with ed5. I guess knight e4 seems to be the best move in this position. Yeah, that's what Vaganian does. He puts his knight to e4, and now it remains to be seen how white continues, because g5 should be taken care of. Bishop into b8. Wow, that's an interesting move, because white says, I don't want that bishop, it can be prone to attack with g5, g4, and I'm just giving up my bishop so that I can put my knight on e5, get my other knight to f3, then play knight d3. It's simple. Well, this is a great play. This is what I love about seeing these legends in action. They don't need to calculate much. They have a good feel of positions, and I think bishop into b8 was a very interesting decision. And now Romanishin takes on e4 as well. I think he's playing really concretely. Next he will break with f3. Vaganian thinking whether he should take with the d pawn or the f pawn. Perhaps he would take with the f pawn. Here he takes with the d pawn in the position so that later he can break with c5. Also the d4 pawn is hanging, so rook cd1 just to keep the option of f3 open. But rook fd1 was played. Okay, queen to c7. This is I think Vaganian is confident about his chances. F4 was played, not f3. Okay. And c5. Okay, this is activating his bishop on b7. d5 might not really be good. The pawn will become more of a weakness, it seems. He plays d5, but I can just take and play bishop d6, or straight away bishop d6 is also possible. I think he will take on d5, possibly, because the bishop on g2 is just very bad. Yeah, he plays bishop d6 first. He's okay with d into e6, giving up his pawn. Queen c3, rook f e8, defending the e6 pawn. and putting more pressure on the e5 knight. The e5 knight doesn't really have a square to go back to. No, he might. f3 is controlled, g4 is controlled, d3 is controlled. So the e5 knight is in trouble here, and overall white is in trouble. He took maybe bishop e4 followed by bishop e4 was not a great move. I think bishop into b8 was fine. Here he pushed a bit too hard. Now what should white do here? That is the question. Bishop h3, keeping the pressure on the f5, e6 pawns. I guess g6 is also possible here. Doesn't look bad, but I'm sure Romanishin has prepared the move g4 coming up at some point. Yeah, g6 was played. If I know Romanishin well by now, by seeing his games, I know that he loves to attack. So g4 definitely on cards. Not sure if it's a good move or not, but definitely a possibility. And also black is ahead on time, nearly 40 seconds ahead on time. And g4, well, I know the legends well. He played the move g4. Many ways for white, I guess, to counter this, but yeah, e into d5 looks the most principled. Now g into f5 is an option, but then d4 looks very strong, so you have to take on d5, cd, and now bishop into e5 wins a pawn, at least. Well, Romanishin takes, queen takes e5, and yeah. Well, d6, pawn is threatening to come to d7. Rook c d8. Can the d6 pawn turn into a strength or a weakness? This is the question. If you take queen into e5, rook into e5 is pretty fine. Okay, he takes on f5. I guess Vaganian will just take back on f5, or he could, yeah, just gf5. Next, if the queens are exchanged, you can easily bring up your king from f7 to e6, but f5 pawn is definitely a weakness. So after take on e5, e3 was played, just keeping the position for now intact. I guess black should bring in his king. King f7 and king e6. Yeah, that's what he does. Rook to c2, threatening rook f2 or rook g2, but I think he is going to lose material here. King e6, threatening the pawn on d6. Rook to d2, well, rook d5, bishop d5 was played. Yeah, this looks over now. The d6 pawn is falling. Vaganian just puts his pieces away nicely. He knows he's winning this game. Romanishin has already lost his first game against Karpov, and perhaps he is on the verge of losing another one. Well, bishop f1, tricky. You can't take on d6 just as yet because of rook d5 and bishop c4. Rook d6, well, maybe you can take bishop c4, but you are in some kind of a zugzwang then. So bishop into a2, well, that's a free pawn to be taken. Why not? Why not? b4 perhaps can come up. Rook a1. But now it turns out that white gets some counterplay with taking the pawn on a7. Romanishin thinking whether to play his bishop to c4, b3 or d5. He plays it to b3. Now rook into a7 is coming up. h7 pawn is hanging, but black will take on d6 and remain a pawn ahead. So that way black is better here. To all the viewers, I would like to say you are witnessing live the match of the legends, Romanishin, Vaganian, Karpov, everyone playing against these three legends. There was also Jubojevic, the great player who was not really feeling well for this game, and that's why he's not here playing. So these three will fight it out against each other. The pawn moves to c4. And now white has an outside edge passer. Black has the queenside majority. My bet is that black is much better with b5, b4, c3 coming up. But who knows? The h pawn is also waltzing down the board. h5. Things are not very clear. Things are not so clear. Guys, what do you think here? h6 is a possibility. Maybe b4 followed by c3 will come up. So b4 by Vaganian, and now h6. Anyway, rook b7 for stopping the pawn. Yes, king c5. Well, rook c7 check is a threat, but he first pushes his pawn to h6. Black has to be careful, yeah? Otherwise this pawn might just queen. He goes rook to e6, h7, rook h6. Okay. King to f2. So black has the h pawn under control, but his rook has become a bit passive. Now bishop to a4 is played. I'm wondering if rook c7 is not possible, because rook c7 looks good. And now bishop c6, you can take on c4 perhaps. King c4, rook c6 is coming. So bishop into c4. Yeah, he takes. King b6 was played. Maybe not the best. Rook to g7. Well, something went wrong. And what? Did they agree to a draw or what? What just happened? Yeah, draw was agreed to. I think when he took on c4, if king into c4 is definitely losing, so that's not a good move because rook c6 check. Then the h pawn queens. But yeah, after king b6, also I think white had some chances there. Just the pawn was blundered by Vaganian, and they are analyzing the position now. This is the point. Blitz games need not be analyzed, but the players are trying to analyze the game. Let's see if they do analyze this. I don't think so. So okay, we had a question by Omkar Chakradev a few minutes ago who said, in their peak forms, who is the greatest chess player? Carpow, Carlsen or Fischer? Kasparov, Carlsen or Fischer or any other? Okay, this is interesting question. So let's try to discuss on it. At the same time, for all the people who say that why don't we put a 2D board on the screen? Well, right now what we have is the live feed from the tournament, and that's the reason why we haven't really put the 2D board on right now. We would like to just focus on the live game and see what's going on. Okay, Vaganian will take on Karpov now. in the next game. This is going to be exciting game. Karpov played beautifully in the first game against Romanishin, if you witnessed it, and now Vaganian is well, another strong GM. I guess he played stronger than Romanishin, so this is going to be a good fight between these two. Today we have totally 6 rounds that will be played. So this is the third round and the game begins. Vaganian plays d4, knight f6, knight f3, e6, and what I love about Carpow is that he doesn't really care about too much of openings. He's going to put his pawn on e6, c5. Okay, that's a little bit of aggressive play by Carpow, but b6 is his favorite move. I've seen him play that in a lot of games. Let's see if he plays that. Yes, he does. And after castles, he plays his bishop to b7, and this is a very good system against the Cole and the Cole and the Zukertot variation. c4 was played, and now you have to be careful. At some point, white could go d5 and after knight c3 and close that bishop on b7. So Karpov just played his bishop to e7, and now d5 is definitely a threat to watch out for. So if you castle with black, then d5, ed, cd, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop d5, and you have bishop into h7. That's coming up. So d5 was played by Karpov, which is a principled option, but now he has to be careful because after cd there could be a check coming on b5 and then knight coming to e5. So these are all the complex complications in this opening. It's a well-known opening theoretical line, but I'm not sure if Vaganian has brushed up on his theory here. He's thinking for his move. Should he take on d5 here, or well, he takes on c5, and Karpov has a question. I think he'll take with the b pawn in this case. It looks solid for now. Bishop c5 you don't want to move the same piece in the opening twice. Not a bad move at all, but somehow the fact that Karpov is thinking here means that he may not go for b into c5, which is the most natural move in the position. He is thinking of playing something like bishop c5, or perhaps he takes with the b pawn. Okay, he goes for the most natural move in the position, b into c5. And now Vaganian must do something, otherwise if black castles, then black is doing absolutely fine. So he takes on d and plays b3. Okay, I don't think that was a good move. b3, bishop b2. Yes, white has developed all his pieces, but black is doing really well. I remember some of Karpov's games when he was playing with the hanging pawns, and then he would go for this d4 break in the center with his bishop on b7 looking across the board. Here, this definitely looks one. Now let's try to understand how Karpov handles these hanging pawns. He plays his knight to b6, and this is where I think you can learn a lot from these legends. Not in positions where you have to calculate tactics, but in positions where you have to place your pieces properly. Now you will see that after knight e2 there is a threat, bishop into f6. If you take with the bishop, then the c5 pawn is hanging. If you don't take with the bishop and you take with the g pawn, kingside pawn structure is compromised. So Karpov has a decision to make. What should he do? How should he keep control of the c5 pawn? Rook to c8 is definitely an option, I think, which Karpov is considering. But then the knight goes to f4, and it keeps its pressure in the position over there. Knight e4, yes, this is another possible move but now bishop e4 does mangle the pawn structures to some extent, but white has to tread a bit carefully because he's low on space. If he takes too many liberties, then black can run him over. I like how Karpov always takes much more time than his opponents. Like in this position, he's already down by a minute, but he likes to get the positions of his type, and that's why he thinks a bit for his moves. Okay, queen comes to c2. Perhaps the other rook will join to d1. Now the black queen, where do you keep the queen is the question. Don't want to keep it on the c file, because then d4 becomes sort of impossible to execute. Yeah, where else can you? Usually knight into f2 threats come up when you move the f1 rook, but here there are no pieces on the e file, so rook e8 can be an option, but Carpo plays a5. Yeah, getting some play, is going to play a4. That's how you create some counter play. I guess rook fd1 will be met with a move like queen b8, perhaps knight f4. Take care of that knight, it's coming to h5 at some point. Then it will create some deadly threats. I like this battle of hanging pawns. Queen d6 is what Karpov plays. Interesting. The queen will move to h6. Well, knight h5, how do you... I think knight h5 just g6. Bishop into e4, d into e4, rook fd1. Okay, that's interesting. Now black's pawn structure is ruined, but he says, I have the bishop pair, I'm going to play my queen to c7. Where are you going to play your knight from f3 now? Are you going to move it to d2? Okay, so now knight c4 is coming up. Queen to c6, defending first of all the pawn on e4. This position is very difficult to assess as such. Knight c4, I think the knights will be exchanged. It's not so easy to assess this position, but I think black is not worse, contrary to what it may seem. Because of the bishop pair, he is doing okay here. Not maybe very slightly worse in the position. Now you have to look at ideas of rook d3, because if white takes rook into d3, then ed3 opens up the queen. So knight h5 was played now. g6, bishop f8. Okay. Rook exchange and queen moves to c3, putting more pressure on g7 point. And Carpo spots the opportunity, plays his rook to d3, and a pawn is lost. Queen into d5, queen into a5 was lost, and Carpo centralizes his pieces. Queen d5, attacking the knight on h5. The game is picking up tempo now. Well, knight into g7, is it possible? Not really right now. He comes back to g3, but now I guess rook d2 should be considered here. Rook to d2 definitely seems possible. Also h5, h4 shouldn't be underestimated. So many possibilities here, but it seems like white has just smuggled a pawn in the position. Rook d2, yeah, he goes for the most natural move. Now the bishop on b2 is hanging. He can play bishop c3 in this position. Then rook d1 check, takes, and knight f1. bd4. Wow. Vaganian is sharp. He sees that now the rook on d2 is hanging. Karpov thinking for his move. He plays his rook back. Oh, is the pawn on c5 hanging? That's the question. Bishop c5. He spotted of some tactic, it seems. Yeah, rook d2 bd4. I guess they are all ready to make a draw. Well, two draws for Vaganian, and that makes Carpow the sole leader of the event. 1.5 out of 2 games. Vaganian on 1, Romanishin on half. Well, the last position was interesting. There was a repetition. Maybe Vaganian could have taken on c5, but I'm thinking bishop into c5, perhaps bishop takes c5, and then rook c5 is not possible because of rook d1 check, knight f1, rook into f1, king into f1, queen d1, then there is queen e1. Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting final position, but the players agreed to a draw. And so we have halfway through the day today, and Karpov is playing some fine chess. He is in the lead, followed by Vaganian and then Romanishin. I think the players will take a short break now, and we can come back to the question that was asked, and I think it would be nice if whoever would like to chip in to this question. The question was by Omkar Chakradev, who says, who is the greatest of all time, Kasparov, Carlsen or Fischer? The easiest answer to this would be, they were in different generations, and so we can't really compare them. However, I have a feeling that we should be looking at some of the facts. For example, Kasparov became the world champion in 1985, and then he held on the world championship for 15 years until 2000. Also, until he retired, he was right there at the top. Fischer, on the other hand, he didn't have a very big chess career. He played for not many years. Say the best years of his life were from 59 or 60 to 72, so it's like 10 to 12 years. But moment he became the world champion, he didn't play a single professional game. He did surface back in 92 to play against Spassky again, but apart from that, hardly ever played his games. And the third person is Carlsen, who is dominating the chess world of today like never before. So yeah, there was some food for thought. We'll come back to this discussion once again, and I would like to add even Karpov to this list, about whom we will discuss very soon. But first, Carpeau now having the white pieces against Romanishin. Let's see how Carpeau grinds his opponents with the white pieces, and he plays his knight to c3. Okay, interesting. Carpeau loves to play knight f3 instead of c3, allowing the Nimzo. I'm sure Romanishin has some aggressive system in mind. He plays his pawn to c5. Knight f3 is what Carpeau is going to play. He's not going to try for something very sharp. I guess a3 is a possibility here. And d5 doesn't work because that pawn is just loose. For all the people who are wondering what is it that they are watching here, well, it's the match of the legends taking place in Spain, Platja. The live broadcast is being brought to us by Ankit Dalal, ChessBase India Power, who is in Spain right now as we speak, and queen to a5 was played. Well, this creates some threats like knight d4 in the position, knight to b4. And the bishop on g5 should remain careful. e3 looks normal as such. Then you have to keep an eye out for bishop b4. So Carpo, as usual, falling back in time. He is thinking for what is to be done. Bishop b4 takes on f6. Okay, gf6 doubles the pawn. Black is not at all unhappy. He feels like his pawn structure is pretty compact here. Well, in such positions, bishop b4 threatening to take on c3 is always an option, but I think Karpov can also play g3, bishop g2 and short castle. This looks solid. Also, the g file then cannot be so powerfully used because the rook on g8 is attacking the pawn on g3. But it's very nice to see how Romanishin is playing so quickly in these positions. He is definitely the man in touch. He plays in a lot of FIDE rating tournaments, many open events. And here knight d2 doesn't look so great. I guess knight d4 is possible. Knight b4 is possible. He plays bishop b4 still. Rook to c1. Carpow is not going to give up his pawn structure so easily. Take on c3, queen c3. Are you going to take on a2? No, f6 is hanging, so you take on c3. And now it's an endgame. Wow, Carpow grind. Okay, so b6. Is Carpow going to play e3 or g3? That is the question. I think if he plays g3, then bishop a6 is to be considered. Even bishop b7. Bishop a6, rook c8, knight a5, putting pressure on the c4 pawn definitely looks worthy of consideration. Karpov just plays his pawn to e4. Well, the reason I didn't like this move is because now the d4 square is a bit weak, but Karpov doesn't. And look at this move, king to e2. Is this okay? Look, something is fishy here, but he wants to play king e3 and then plays bishop, but king e2, such a quick decision by Karpov. Bishop a6, now yeah, king e3 should be okay. Yeah, that is what Karpov does. Black is looking for ways to create some play, rook to g8, logical, so the bishop can't develop, and now maybe g3 should be considered by Karpov so that he can play his bishop out. First he goes a3 with the idea of b4, stopping also knight b4, rook c8. Romanishin's moves are just flowing in the position. I think Karpov will go b4 now. f4. It's playing on all sides of the board. This doesn't look very good for white. I mean, he has the space, but on the other hand, he's undeveloped, so who knows. As black, I'm thinking for my move now, knight a5. Knight a5, b4 is possible, and the c4 pawn is still not hanging, so knight b8. Okay. d6, knight d7 is an idea, but yeah, knight b8 didn't look impressive. g3, Karpov is slowly going to develop his pieces. d6 was played. And bishop to e2. Knight d7, the knight is planning to put itself on c5, so maybe Karpov goes rook to c1, overprotecting his pawn. If knight goes to c5, then you can always play b4. So here Romanishin gets his bishop back to b7. I think white has a nice edge here, the Monocacy bind position, and I think Carpow is the right person to grind such position. It's really remarkable how he's getting his kind of positions in almost every game. Now b4 should definitely be a plan. Then a4, a5. Okay, knight to b3. The knight will do well on the d4 square. That's the reason why Karpov plays it to b3. And now he goes knight to d4. So knight b5 is a threat. a6 will be played. So that limits the bishop on b7 to some extent. Yeah, but knight b5 is a powerful idea. So Romanishin has to take some measures against it. He plays a6. And now white has done a lot of things in this position, and now g4. Okay. Perhaps Karpov has a plan that later on the rook could move from g1, g3 to h3 to attack the h7 pawn. Or he might just want to play h4 followed by g5, fg, hg, and then pressure on the h7 pawn. Karpov had made a living out of winning such positions in the past, and it's so nice to see him once again back in action live playing such positions. So h6 was played by Romanishin, not letting white create weakness on h7. Rook to c2, and the other move, now knight to c5, b4, knight d7, just so that now the c4 is a permanent weakness, the c4 pawn. That's the idea. Bishop e2 was played. White has to keep take care of his pawns and everything, while black on the other hand has less space, so he can just keep maneuvering around. But at the same time, black has to be careful not to allow white some really dangerous breakthrough sometime soon. I guess h4 sounds logical here, or h3. What will Karpov play? Rook to f1 he wanted to play, and then he brings it back to d1 in this position. Rook d1 was played. Knight f8. Both sides moving inside. We are approaching the last 1 minute of the game now. Both players down to very less time. Romanishin must do something active. This is not his style of play, just doing nothing. He has to lash out at some point. He would love to play d5 or e5 or something like this, but nothing works right now. Karpov has all the squares and pieces under his control, but also for Karpov it's not easy to make progress. He plays h4, okay, and knight goes to g6, attacking the pawn on h4. Now Karpov played c5, giving up the h4 pawn. So it's very radical by Karpov. I think he's threatening c6, and if you play bc, dc, dc, the moment the knight moved from f8, Karpov had seen it that the rook on d7 is undefended, and he can play this move so that if black takes twice on c5, then knight f5 check is going to be curtains. c6 is a threat, so white cannot, black cannot take on h4 right now. Rook d8, but this is bad news. Such alert play by Carpow. CD6 is taken. Well, if Rook D6, what does he have in mind? Knight to F5, you lose an exchange. Position is going down for Romanishin. Now you can see he's down on time as well. He plays Rook D6, Knight F5 check, E into F5, Rook is taken. Now Rook D7 check is a big threat. It seems like Karpov is on his way to another victory against Romanishin. Well, Oleg has to think of something. He takes on E4, but Rook D7 check. You can't move up. Rook D6 is a mate. You can move down, King F8, but now I think Karpov will just exchange the rooks and take on A6. This is his style of play. He is going to give his opponents no chances. And now take on A6. That looks good. That looks like a juicy pawn. First GF, not giving up any material, and H5, and that's resignation by Romanishin. Great win by Karpov. I really loved how alert he was to find the move C5. The moment the knight moved from F8, it was defending the D7 rook. He played his pawn to C5, creating a great tactical threat. So players discuss a bit, but Karpov is clearly the superior player. 2.5 out of 3 games. One more Karpov game to go. Well, Romanishin will be looking for his first victory against Vaganian now. And then we have Vaganian versus Karpov. 2 more rounds to go today. We are watching the match of legends all the way from Spain, Platja. This is live, being brought to you by ChessBase India. And I hope that you enjoyed. We'll be taking a break for a couple of minutes and coming back shortly. Well, the next opponents will arrive in a bit. Until then, time to get back to our conversation regarding who's the greatest player of all time. Kasparov, Fischer, Carlsen are the obvious choices. Well, we can also add Karpov to that list because Karpov has really achieved a lot of things in his chess career. There was a time between 1975 to 85 or 84 until he would win all the tournaments that he would play, and people would say that whenever Karpov was playing, you have to be thinking about the second spot, that's what. By the way, we have a few people here. I would like to shout out to Advait Vibhute, Omkar Chakradev, Prathamesh Divekar, Mukesh Kesri. We also have Tanmay Srinath. All of them watching live, and I think in general Karpov's form in this event really makes us feel like he should be coming back to chess, the way he played. Okay, so Advait Vibhute asks me, to make a video on how to achieve norms where Advait, we will be doing that soon. We'll make one on that, but right now the important question is to determine who the greatest player of all time is. Well, according to me, even we can add Anand to that list, for the simple reason that when people spoke about the Russian domination, the Soviet domination in chess, there were two people who actually broke it completely. One was Fischer and the other one was Anand. These two people at that point, nowadays when you look at it, say Carlsen dominating the chess scene, it's no longer as surprising or unbelievable, because you have world number 2 Caruana, who's from America, then you have Giri, who's from Netherlands, you have, now it's no longer a sport dominated completely by the Soviet Union, but earlier in that time, back in that time, it was. And that's why I find that Fischer's achievement to be really, really tremendous. That being said, I became serious about chess from the time when Kasparov retired. So, if only I would have been a little more serious about chess before, I could have understood how great he was. Seeing him live in action, this I can't do for Fischer, of course, because the time when he used to play, I was not even born. But Kasparov was retired somewhere around 2004, so I was already 14 then. I didn't really witness his domination in full light, but he was really a scary opponent to face. That's what everyone says, and people say that Kasparov wouldn't have become Kasparov if there was no Karpov, because Karpov really, really tested him. He put him through the test of fire, and that's how Kasparov became one of the greatest players in the world. And talking about Carlsen, I think Carlsen has been able to find a new sort of dimension to chess in this age of computers, preparation, and this is what I think every legend has done. When Kasparov was playing and when there was not much of preparation, he went ahead and prepared himself really deeply in the opening phase and tried to blast his opponents in the first phase of the game itself. And then now that preparation is so much in vogue, Carlsen comes and says, well, I don't want to much of preparation, I'll just play. But even then, you see him nowadays playing the Sveshnikov, which is not an opening that you can play without preparation. So it's not just one way of these legends play. They always keep improving, keep improvising. If they were playing openings which were not very theoretical, then they would suddenly start playing something which is theoretical and keep their opponents always guessing about themselves. They are always evolving in their sport. So that's how I think these are the things. But if you have to ask me to choose one of them, I would say just from the point of view of this history, I like Fischer very much, because he broke the Soviet domination on the sport, which was very difficult in my opinion. One genius comes all the way from US and beats everyone. It's just impossible sometimes. Well, someone says, I heard that Carpow played more than 100 tournaments in his entire career. I don't think he just played 100. I think he won more than 100 tournaments. When he was this period from 75, when he became the world champion, to around 83, when Kasparov entered the scene, he was winning everything, just about every event that he would play. So we're waiting for the players to come back. I think the next game that we will witness is Romanishin versus Vaganian, and then final game of the day would be Carpow versus Vaganian. This is what I feel is going to happen, and there we have Vaganian coming in Well, to all the people who say that the audio is only on one channel, well guys, I'll try my best to fix it very soon. Have to check in my system as to what the problem is, but until then, let's enjoy this. I think Romanishin will come soon, and Vaganian. Vaganian always likes to come early to the board. He has 2 draws until now, both against Karpov and Romanishin. It's a double round robin tournament right now. And by the way, these legends will also play against each other tomorrow, so it's not like just today that they are playing. But right now, Carpow is the one leading the tournament with 2.5 out of 3. Romanishin is on half out of 3, so not a great event for him. He's lost both his games to Karpov. And Vaganian is on 1 out of 2, so he will be looking to win this game right now with white, and then face Karpov again with white, with black pieces, and try to beat the 12th world champion. Game's about to begin. 5 minutes plus 3 seconds increment. Okay, here Romanishin has arrived. Okay, so the thing that we are witnessing right now, to all those who have joined the stream, is the match of the legends that's taking place in Platja in Spain. Getting the live feed from the venue thanks to ChessBase India Power. Ankit Dalal is over there, and we have the Trompowski Defy. This is my favorite line. If you take on f6, I like to take it back with the e pawn. But okay, e3 was played, and you have some kind of a Torre attack now. Knight bd7. Recently, Simon Williams made a DVD on the Torre for ChessBase, so let's see if white is able to gain something here. g6 is a nice move. f4, so that's the reason why the knight wasn't developed on f3. You want to play your knight to f3 and then to e5. So bishop g7, knight f3, c5, c3. Okay, calm play, and queen to b6. Because now if queen b3, I think c4 is the idea that wants to play. Maybe queen e2, but then queen e2, c4, yeah. So how to defend the pawn on b2 is the question. How to defend the pawn on b2? Queen to c1 was played by Vaganian. And Romanishin, will he take the bait and castle? I think it's safe to castle, but not yet, not so soon. He plays his knight to e4. Bishop is attacked on g5, so Vaganian moves it. I think you can get your other knight to f6. Yeah, black looks absolutely fine. Knight f6, bishop could come to f5, bishop could come to g4. So Romanishin, can he score the first win of this match of legends? Well, I think for Vaganian, he realizes that he doesn't have to do too many things against Romanishin. If he can just keep things simple, that is good enough. You know, Romanishin does sooner or later make some errors in his games. Until now, we have been seeing it. Overextends his position, and so important thing is not to try too much. Knight d2, it's fine. Now bishop f5, I guess. Just develop your bishop on a good square. Yeah. Knight to e5. Okay, the knight defends the bishop on d3, and in itself e5 is a very strong square for the knight. Rook c8. Now the rook looking opposite the queen is always some cause for concern, but here I don't think there are any threats, so I would say you can just play castles here. Nothing much is happening. Yeah, castles was played. and CD will be met with ED. Romanishin thinking about his move. What are the plans that he can take up here? You know, he would like to castle here. This looks possible. I'm always afraid that white will place a move like h3 and then threaten g4 in such positions, push black pieces back from the board. Castle is normal chess, but knight d6, yeah, this is a good move, because now you want to exchange the bishops on d3, the light squared bishops, and then you want your other knight to go to e4, the f knight, so that you can push f6 and push the knight on e5 back. So all in all, knight d6, I like this move very much. I don't see any tactical refutation. The queen on c1 is just utterly misplaced in my opinion. Doesn't look great. Okay, but what should white do now? Maybe knight df3, bringing the knight from d2 to f3 is a possibility here. Not so sure if this is a good idea. Bishop into f5 might be possible. Take here, then knight takes f5, and I can play my bishop back to f2, defending the e3 pawn. So this looks, but look at Vaganian, he's burning his time, he's down to 2 minutes. He takes on f5, knight f5, and then plays his bishop back to f2, just as we had thought. g4 is one possibility now. Romanishin would love to castle. I think knight d6, just go back, knight d6, keep things simple in the position. So if you castle, the problem could be that g4, knight has to move, then g5, and knight d7 is a fork. So that is an issue. Knight e4. Knight e4. Well, I can take that knight, I think. Surely. I can take the knight. This looks pretty okay, I guess, taking the knight. Taking the knight and then queen c2. Attacking the pawn on e4, and also queen a4 check is threatened. This looks good. Yeah, that's what Vaganian does. D into e4. Will he follow it up with queen c2, or will he do something else? Queen c2, I think you have to be a little bit... Yes, queen c2 with dual threats, e4 and a4. cd. Well, if you take ed, then e3 is a problem, but queen a4 check. This is a move that Romanishin missed completely. Look at the smile. There's a bit of smile on the face. King d8 is bad because of queen d7. King f8 loses to knight d7, and that's why well, knights, he has to give up an exchange, but this is just lost. I think he can resign soon. Maybe this is what he may do. Okay, he castles, but now just rook c1, rook goes to c5. He takes on b2. So Romanishin is fighting, not giving up. Rook to c2 was played, but this looks bad. I understand the bishop on f2 is not so great, but white, the c6 pawn is weak, and then later on the a7 pawn should also fall. So queen exchange. Yes, he saved a pawn, but the queen coming off means that the rooks get a free hand in the position. So a5 was played, and now rook to b1 or c1. Yeah, rook c1. If you exchange one pair of rooks, that should be good. Knight goes to d6 and picks up one pawn. Doesn't seem that black can survive this. I think knight c4, perhaps. Okay, rook b8, the other rook moves into c6. Bishop f8. And here rook d7. Knight has c4, a nice square on c4. So, well, black is slowly getting coordinated. And Vaganian must be feeling a little bit uneasy now. Or easy. He's playing on the queen side. Sorry, on the king side with f5. Why? gf5. Okay. Took there and rook d c7. f4. E takes and now e3. Fantastic play by black. It seems like he's on the attack. He's the one who's exchanged down, but doesn't really care. Rook d8 and rook to c8. He takes on d4. Well, the game is really exciting, I would say, because I thought it was all over when he won an exchange, but not really. These players are definitely legendary players, but they're not playing very carefully. They are just playing on intuition, not much of calculation. Now rook c8 is a threat, attacking the bishop on f8. So king g7, but then bishop c3 pins the rook and wins the game. So, well, how to save the piece? Not too many ways. Let's see how Romanishin finds his way out of this situation. It looks difficult for him. Maybe he can take on f4 and then play e2, but it doesn't look good. Rook f4, rook c8, e2, rook into f8 check, king g7. And there could be plenty of ways to finish off the game there. Bishop c3 check is one of them. But that's the only thing I can see here for black. What else? You can't really save your bishop on f8. Romanishin down to 1 minute. Well, if he loses this game, then he has 3 losses today and 1 draw. And Vaganian will move to +1, so he would have 2 out of 3. Definitely interesting to see the last round, Vaganian versus Karpov. Well, I think Romanishin taking up a lot of time. He's thinking of some trick that he can execute. Knight d6, king f1. Okay, he had made his decision already what to play. Now rook f4, king e2. Once the king is out, perhaps that's good news. But now Vagan, well, isn't the d6 knight hanging? Yeah, he takes on d6 and resign the game. Okay, so not a great game for both the players, I would say, but especially not for Romanishin, who was clearly missing out a lot of things here. So he's lost 3 games and just 1 draw against Vaganian. And now comes the final game, the game which we have all been waiting for. Carpow with the white pieces will play against Vaganian. Vaganian is unbeaten until now. So the guy who wins this will definitely lead the event on the first day. We have 6 similar rounds happening tomorrow. So already one more legend who was playing here, Lubomir Lubajevic, but he is not so well, and that's why he isn't playing. So it's just 3 players fighting out against each other. And Romanishin still sitting on the chair. I don't think he's the one who's playing now, but he's definitely not very happy. You know this feeling, you have retired from chess, you're not playing much anymore. Of course, Romanishin has not retired, he plays actively. But even for players who have retired, when they lose the game, it's never a pleasant feeling. You know, chess players cannot take their losses easily. That is for sure. Let me check. Karpov versus Vaganian is the next game. It's Russia versus Armenia. So whom do we have here? Chat. We have been discussing well, a lot of people asking me if I have made part 2 on English. Well, I'll do that soon. Gaurav Mahajan says, which tournament is this? Well, this is the tournament Legends of the Chess World, organized in Spain in a place called Platja. We have the ChessBase India Power Group who's gone there for a group tour with Ankit Dalal as the tour manager, and the kids are doing really well in the tournament, and this live broadcast is being brought thanks to him and the organizers for getting us the live broadcast, live scenes. I know it's a bit patchy, the moves, players, when they move, it stops a bit. Well, maybe we'll try to fix that tomorrow, because tomorrow as well we have 6 rounds. This is the final round now that is being played, and we can see in the frame that Karpov and Vaganian will be playing. Maybe some discussions going on just before the game. And we have had a very important discussion before these games. Every time there's a break, we have been discussing who's the greatest chess player ever. And I think there were only 3 options given to me: Kasparov, Kasparov, Fischer, and Carlsen. I would like to add 2 more to that list: Anand and Karpov. And I would like to ask you guys to mention in the comment section what you think. So the games have begun, and we are witnessing a Queen's Gambit. Bishop g5. This is where Carpow had huge theoretical discussions with Kasparov back in 1984-85 matches. Bishop into f6. He takes e3 castles, and now I guess rook c1 is the main move here. There's also perhaps cd5, not here, but first you let him play. He plays bishop e2. Okay, now black can take on c4, but he plays c6, knight d7, and e4 is played by Karpov. So e4, will this be another of Karpov's nice positional squeezes? Takes on c4, and now next move, if bishop into c4, perhaps e5. Yeah, e5, that's what he wanted to play. Okay, d5, knight to b6, bishop b3. Black has the bishop pair. White has a potential passer on d5. Interesting position. bg4 is quite an irritating pin, to be honest. I mean, h3, he took queen f3. Well, why did he take? I mean, he could have played bishop h5, but then maybe he was afraid that g4, bg6, his bishop would be misplaced on g6. Even then, now I feel that white's position is definitely preferable, because rook goes to fd1, rook ac1, knight is well placed on c3, there's a passer, so white definitely has a small edge here, just by comparing the pieces in general. And Karpov would be really looking forward to beating Vaganian, because that would give him a really strong 1.5 point lead in the tournament. Vaganian is thinking on how to activate his bishop there. He can take cd, knight c8, with the idea of putting his knight to d6. That looks plausible. cd ed, um, knight to c8. Yeah, let's see if Vaganian goes for that, because knight c8, you want to put your knight on d6. He first plays queen to e7. I think Karpov will go rook fd1. Yeah. But also now there's a threat that cd rook ad1, because he wants to play the other rook to e1, so that cd ed, there's no e4 that comes in from black's end. And Carpo plays d into c6. It's a very positional way. And now g3. How does he even find moves like g3? I mean, what is the point? Just improve his king g2. That's the point of the move g3. That's Carpo for you. He'll play h4 and he will just squeeze that bishop on f6. Rook d4. Knight e2 takes the rooks, and now rook d8. So Vaganian is pleased to exchange of pieces. This is going to be another draw, I guess, in my opinion, unless Carpo is able to find something really good in this position. I doubt that he can find something really exciting here. Rook d8, queen d8 is possible, but then king g2, the queen can jump into d2 square. On the other hand, yeah, he takes on d8. If king g2, I am not very sure about queen d2. Knight c3 was played, so that if queen d2, then you have queen e2. Well, Karpov has won many such endgames in his prime, so we shouldn't discount him winning this. Right now, at this age and with this not having that killer instinct like before, I doubt that he will be playing for a win. Now queen d7 attacks the pawn on h3. Of course king g2 is possible, but h4 looks even nice, so you sort of take away the square from the bishop. And now bishop d8. Where is the bishop going? I think to b6, but first you have to get the knight out from there. So knight d1. Karpov wants to launch some kind of a mini attack in the position. Knight e3, go to f5. Knight c8 to go to d6 perhaps. Anyway, knight e3 looks good, and knight d6. So the knight covers both c4 and f5 square, where the white knight wants to jump. Knight g4 is another square where the knight can go to. So all in all, it seems like white has definitely some push, because his bishop on b3 is superior right now, putting pressure on f7 point. If Karpov plays the move something like knight c4, then you can be sure that white is not really playing for a win. But Karpov is taking his time. He still has nearly 3 minutes on his clock. Here is where white has to find something, or else bishop will go to b6 and then it's all done over there. You know, black would be very active at that point. So knight g4 is possible, and now knight g4 introduces some threats like knight into h6. First of all, e5 pawn is hanging, so queen e6 is what, when we played queen e7 was played here. Oh, sorry, queen e6, just the queen is hanging. So queen e7. Now what do you do next? The knight on g4 had come to that square to attack the pawn on e5, but beyond that he doesn't seem to have any role in the position. Carpow will play something positional, queen to c3, attacking the pawn on c6 and e5. Well, is Carpow weaving his magic? He takes the pawn on e4. Now queen takes c6, so we are suddenly beginning to have some imbalance in the position. And now the knight on e4 is hanging, so you can't play bishop b6. For now, the knight has to come back. Maybe knight f6, offering an exchange. Knight f6, knight into f6. Then you don't want to take with the queen because of queen e8 check. But you can definitely take with the g pawn. Nothing bad in that. Next your bishop will come to b6. So knight f6 looks okay. Both players down to 2 minutes on their clock. If they are not careful, they'll get under some time trouble. Knight f6 was played. Now I think Karpov will maintain the knights with knight e3, because the knight is critical if white wants to create something. But at the same time, knight e3, bishop b6, knight f5. Yes, there is definitely some pressure, but queen d7 then should be okay. Overall, these two players are maintaining a decent level of play. A gf6 was played, and Carpo, I don't know what he is thinking, because now the opposite colored bishop, does he think that he is better with something like bishop c2, queen e4, that battery on that side? Because black needs only bishop b6 and then he is fine. I mean, should be okay. King g7, he will slowly gather his pieces around. So bishop c2 was played. Beginning to understand how Karpov plays a bit, yeah. Yeah, but what's next? Queen. Well, he's putting pressure on Vaganian and hoping that his opponent will go wrong. King g7 should definitely be thought of, because a mate with a bishop and queen is not so possible. For example, the queen comes to e4 to h7. You can just get your king out from f8 and just go out on the e7 square. But yeah, you do lose the h6 pawn, and then h pawn becomes a passer. So Vaganian is also taking his time. He had built up a small edge on time, about 30 seconds, but now he's gone below Karpov. He must make his move quickly, or else he might fall under some severe pressure with a slightly minus position, and also low on time. So king f8, well, h6, how to attack the h6 pawn? Queen e4, or should the queen remain on c6 for some time to keep the pressure going? Queen e4 was played. Queen h7 will come up. Queen e3, and here Vaganian plays queen to c5 perhaps. Yeah, this is what his plan is. Well, two fighters well past their prime but still fighting hard. You could easily imagine them 20 years ago fighting so hard with time running down. Vaganian thinking for his move, what to do. Carpow has created some issues. Bishop b6 was played, and now Carpow, will he go to h7 and pick up the pawn on h6 with a check? Well, queen h7, queen c5, queen h6, king e7, and then the f2 pawn is hanging. Queen d2, you can come back. I think so. it's worth. He played queen f5, yeah, not really giving him his opponent chances. Queen c5, king g2. Scarpo's way of playing king e7, b3. Maybe there was the point where he missed his chance, I think. Both the players blitzing out their moves now. H6 pawn is the weakness. I guess h5 will be played at some point, and then hope to gang around the h pawn. But okay, bishop h7. I think Karpov already has begun playing not so sensibly here. I mean, in the sense to play for a win. Maybe it's just a draw now. Or he's got his bishop to c4, a good post for the bishop, and check. Oh my god, not really. f2 was hanging, so you couldn't take that pawn. a4, bishop d3. By the way, I must tell you, Karpov is known as the legend of opposite colored bishop endgames, and you are witnessing him live playing these opposite colored bishop positions. If he wins this, that would be amazing. But Vaganian is just so fast here. He is not giving his opponent any chance to play for a win. I think Karpov is going to give up soon, because the weakness on the f2 square is just too important to plan anything. h5 was played, so Karpov is still hoping against hope that he might be able to do something. King f3. Wow. Where is the king going? To g4 perhaps? No, not really. But black is taking over or what? Look at Vaganian. He wants to play for a win. Take the pawn on f7. F. Wow. Queen e4. Oh my god. He just blundered after blunder. Just too many blunders now. Even exchange of queens might give Carpoza the win. Is he going to exchange the queens? Not sure if he can get the win. Queen d5, king h4 and queen f3. Okay, Vaganian may have to exchange the queens. Queen g3 check, has to take king g3, bishop d6 and king e4. Okay, maybe bishop c5 was necessary. Here. Okay, maybe just one pawn, so this should be a draw. Come on. Should be a draw. There's only one pawn and they accept a draw. What a game. What a game by the two fighters. It was nerve-wracking in the Vaganian simply gave up two pawns. He didn't care what he was playing. And that's the difference between the current crop of world-class players and these legends. When the time gets really low, they start blundering, while players like Carlsen, Karyakin, MVL, they still keep their control. So guys, thank you so much for joining in. I hope you had a good time. I know the video was not the best quality, it was patchy, but you could see Karpov in action, the 12th world champion, and also two great players, Romanishin and Vaganian, and I hope you had a good time. This is Sagar Shah signing off. Until then, goodbye.